Hello, everyone. This is Mallika Chopra from Intent.com, and I am really excited to speak with Andrew Hewitt, who is the founder of GameChangers 500. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
So I just want to get into it. I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and would love to hear from you directly because it really gets to the core of the intent of a business. So tell us a little bit about GameChangers.
Yeah, so my intent was creating a list of companies that was an alternative to lists like the Fortune 500 that traditionally rank and profile companies based on revenue alone. And as I watched young people, my friends and peers, climb corporate ladders and become more and more disenchanted by that profit at all cost corporate mentality, I realized that, where were we sending this next generation of leaders to launch their careers, and what were we promoting as success in business, and why wasn't there an alternative where we are really showcasing purpose-driven companies that have the intent not just to make profit, but also to really make a positive impact on humanity. And this was about 4 years ago, and that was when social enterprise was really starting to bubble up, and B Corps and all these different kind of buzzwords were starting to really escalate. And so I saw an opportunity to create a database of these types of companies and really better showcase those organizations that have that intent to be more for benefit than just for profit.
But at the same time, from what I'm seeing of the list of companies, these are pretty big brands who are obviously quite profitable. So what are the kind of dimensions by which you classify or rate these companies?
Sure. So how we classify and rate is an interesting, it's been an interesting journey. When I started on this path, I didn't realize how challenging that was going to be. Benefit is something that's pretty subjective versus revenue, right? It's a number. It's quite easy. And so it has been a journey, and it's people who've been in this conversation for 20 plus years. This has been the big focus. It's just how do you create metrics that measure from everything from environmental impact on employees, engagement, community impact. And so there's a lot of measurements that have been in the process of being created for many, many years. And so I've been able to stand on the shoulders of people that have been doing this a lot longer than I have to leverage those existing certifications, awards, and different metrics. And so we essentially arrived at 9 categories of best practices that we found these types of purpose-driven companies had in common. And then we turn those into badges. So the badges become like a point system to be able to profile and rank organizations. But within each of those badges, there's a set of metrics that we look at, and they cover everything from how a company operates, so how they treat people, their employees, their customers, their office, is it earth-friendly, the types of materials they use if they have a physical product, and how earth-friendly that is, to also the why. So that's more the how. We also look at the why. So this is really the intent part. Is their purpose to be in business to maximize profit, or is it more to maximize benefit? And the assumption here, Mallika, is that these are businesses. So they, like you see on our website, these companies generate revenue, and that's part of what qualifies them. So although we include nonprofits, that nonprofit would need to be earning at least 50% of its revenue from selling a product or service, and be operating more as a business. And so that's what's different from just, the traditional nonprofit space and purpose-driven initiatives there. And it's also what's different from a pure, profit maximizing entity where that's the sole intent. And so that's a little bit about how we measure and how we categorize those different badges.
And then how do companies, how do companies then communicate that they're part of this group, and has that helped companies with consumers when they're sharing their kind of mission and intent in this different way?
It's a great question, and this is one of the challenges in this space. And so people have been awakening and going through their own shifts in consciousness, they're creating these types of companies, and yet they don't have a clear sandbox to play in, right? And so you're given the options of for-profit or nonprofit, and you're thinking, well, neither seem like the right fit. This is a business, it's not a nonprofit, but it's not really, if I raise capital, could I be sued by my shareholders because I'm not putting profits first, you know? And so that's a big part of the challenge that needs to be overcome, and it's becoming, there's some real solutions that are coming out for that, which is great from a policy perspective. And so, yeah, it's a big part of what we're doing is we're helping edify companies that are truly for benefit. And although they don't have necessarily a legal structure to define them, we can profile them and do that in a way to really show they're walking their talk. And that is one of the things that companies like about being profiled through us is that we get to be that honest voice in the middle that says, look, this company is truly for benefit, and here's why. We don't just give them a certification label that says, hey, they're a GameChangers 500 company. We build them a profile on our site, those who request that, and we help showcase their creation story, their impact metrics, the different badges we awarded them and why, specific best practices they're using within their company to inspire other organizations with some of that learning. And so yeah, that is it's a challenge and it's an opportunity that we're tackling.
And are you a company yourself? Is it a GameChangers? Is it a nonprofit? How are you structured?
Yeah, we're walking our talk. You know, it's a for-benefit business, and so this goes back to a legal structure question of how do you structure as a for-benefit. Yeah. Well, fortunately, in 25 states, you can now incorporate as a benefit corporation, and then you can also become a B Corp certified, which is an independent nonprofit that certifies companies that are really following this for benefit model. And so although we're structured in what's considered a for-profit legal structure, we're following the best practices of these for benefit entities to really be a model of what we're teaching.
So, you know, I end up talking to so many people who want to align what they're doing work-wise with meaning and purpose in their life, and, you know, often struggle to find that, you know, in the work environment, and then even as entrepreneurs, you know, that's kind of a whole different kind of set of challenges that often people take. So I'm curious, in working with these companies, it's a difficult question, but is there any advice or guiding principles that you share with individual people who are looking to work with companies that have purpose or start something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually been a big part of my path, is helping that challenge of, you know, if you want to work at one of these companies, how do you actually get plugged in? And so what I created a program called the Gateway Method that helps bridge that gap. The long and the short of it is these types of companies, they hire most of them, especially the pure for benefits, they really hire on a different criteria. And they want people that are aligned to their mission. So being such a mission-driven company, if you're being hired, you're really being hired to join their tribe. And so they want to know that you intrinsically are really fired up about the specific mission that they're on. And so that's important. Another thing is values alignment. So a lot of these companies are hiring based on values. And so the company has a set of core values, and the people they hire, they want to make sure align with those values. Zappos.com is a great example of this, in that they have 10 core values, and their interview questions are all structured around seeing if that candidate is aligned with their 10 core values. And they've had tremendous success building incredibly empowered culture of like-minded, shared values, people who are really more productive and happier at work because of it. and really aligned to their mission. And so that's another thing to look for, is know what your values are and know if they're aligned with the companies you're applying for, and being able to communicate that well through your application material in the interview itself is really important.
That's great. In the book that I'm coming out with, part of thinking about what's your intent, I often find that people actually get kind of daunted by that question because they don't know. And so I think when we ask ourselves, what do I want, and particularly what do I want kind of in the work front, and I'm someone who, with 2 kids and balancing kind of my life as a mom with being an entrepreneur, I kind of constantly am questioning, am I doing the right thing? And I think being driven by some sort of greater purpose, whether it's in my role as a mom or in work, helps kind of keep me inspired and energetic and ongoing. So I'm curious, have you dealt with many companies that really are focusing on women's issues and balance and work-life issues?
Yeah. In fact, 2 best practices that we see in these companies is, one, honoring diversity, and included in that is ensuring women are promoted in leadership roles and are fairly treated and given equal rights, as well as minorities. And so that you do see a lot in these types of companies. And as far as creating work-life balance, that's another common best practice seen in these organizations. Is there's resources and support for personal growth and learning, not just professional growth and learning. And so some companies will have a coach on staff that will be there to coach you, not only to improve in your role in the company, but really just as a life coach for yourself to make sure you're meeting your personal goals as well. And that's out of a care and concern, right, for their employees. That's one of the ways they're using their business to maximize benefit, as it's not just a job. It's really, they see their employees as part of their family, and they want their family to be thriving, their tribe to be thriving. And so we see a lot of that inside these companies.
That's great. So I'm so impressed with what you're doing. You mentioned at the beginning your kind of intent and why you started this. And just a little bit about your background also, kind of what drove you to, were you working in a different corporate environment and then changed, or was it more, as you said, seeing your peers?
Yeah, my journey started actually while I was in college. I just, what really struck me was that we were spending all of this life force studying for exams, regurgitating that information on tests, and not really discovering who we were and what we were naturally good at and what we were passionate about. And so that really fired me up, and I actually wrote a book called The Power of Focus for College Students. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago, or more actually. And so that was kind of my first kind of push into the world. And so I did a lot of speaking and working with college students and recent grads on this issue of how do you launch yourself into a career that you're really passionate about. And I was missing a piece of the puzzle, and that's what GameChangers 500 completed later on. And when I realized that it wasn't just about discovering your strengths and what you're passionate about, the ecosystem you plug yourself into makes a big difference. Yeah. And there's some companies that provide an ecosystem for thriving as an individual, but also they're focused on creating a thriving planet. And that was the difference I found between people who were truly happy and fulfilled and the ones that are going on their career path that were spinning their wheels or finding themselves a little bit more disempowered. And so that's kind of where my work was and how it's led into everything I'm doing now with GameChangers 500.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew Hewitt from GameChangers 500. And again, the best place to learn about that is on your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, just GameChangers500.com.
Okay, and again, I just wanted to thank you for sharing with us. I'm talking to people across all aspects of whether it's living with intent as a parent, through your work, through what you do every day, and I think your work to really focus on companies and other organizations which have that intent is very inspiring. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. I love what you're doing, and it's such a fit. You know, when people discover something, an intent that's meaningful to them, related to their career, and they can find companies that share that intent, and they can join forces. And that's what really I see this being all about is we're finding our tribe that share our greatest intent. And
Fantastic.
That is a really fulfilling way to approach our careers.
Fantastic. Great. Well, another very inspiring person, and I want to thank everyone for listening. And Andrew, thank you again.